Strategy games don't usually get released all that often on the console, but there is a brand new one called Worlds of Magic Planar Conquest. But does this strategic game have enough in it to be worth your money, or is this one strategy that ends up failing? Worlds of Magic Planar Conquest is an enhanced and improved version of a game, Worlds of Magic, that was originally released on PC a while back. The game is a 4X strategy game, which if you're unfamiliar with it, 4X means explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. It was a term that was coined back in the early 90s, and it goes along with games similar to the Civilization series, or one of my all-time favorite series, the Heroes of Might and Magic. In Worlds of Magic Planar Conquest, similar to those games, you have a lord that you get to pick as kind of the figurehead of your particular race or army that you're going to be building up. Your goal is to manage and build up towns, build up units, explore the world, and then conquer and take over your enemy cities. The game features 8 playable races, such as humans, dwarves, elves, undead, draconians, bug, and my absolute favorite is orc. Just because a lot of the units in the game for the orcs are very much like the original Warcraft game, and featuring even warg riders, aka wolf riders, and wolf raiders, which immediately got a huge thumbs up from me. Speaking of races, each race will be able to create several different types of units, and when you combine all of the different races, as well as specialty units that you're able to find amongst the world, you have a total of over 100 different unique units that you can use in various battles. The game unfortunately doesn't feature a story mode, but when you're starting up you get to choose from quite a lot of settings before going into a map. Not only do you get to pick how many opponents you're going to be battling and the difficulty, but also stuff like how fast everything ends up moving, as well as the amount of resources that are on a given map, and then also how many planes are in effect during a game. What ends up adding a lot of strategy and depth to games is the planes, since you can have up to 7 at a given time, which basically kind of works as 7 different world maps that you'll be able to explore, set up various towns, and of course defeat opponents on, with each of your opponents being set up on the various different planes, and you use gates in order to teleport between them. When you start the game, you'll have your base town with a few units depending upon which race you ended up picking, and then it's up to you to start managing and deciding what you want to do. Do you want to explore right away? Do you want to build up one town and get a bunch of really powerful units and fortify your one main base before then going out and exploring and trying to find others? It's all up to you to decide how you want to handle it. In the game, you have to manage stuff like gold, food, as well as magic, with magic being able to make enchanted equipment for your lord, as well as being able to research new spells that you can then use in battles. Gold and food is then used to not only be able to build various different buildings, because you'll have to spend that gold in order to build them initially, but also be able to pay your units, and of course then with food, feed your units. If you don't have enough food or gold, units will abandon you. You always get a choice at the end of a turn, if you're in that critical negative range, that you can decide if you want to kind of manage things. You can maybe cut a few corners here and there, or get rid of some workers so you can kind of save food or that gold so that you can make sure everyone's happy for at least one more turn, or just cut your losses and some of your units will end up abandoning you if you can't end up paying or feeding them. You'll then be able to build up your town as well, adding new buildings. There's some basic buildings that pretty much every race gets to use, and then a bunch of buildings that are specific to whatever race you're currently managing. By making these new buildings, you'll get an increase in the amount of gold or food or magic that you're gaining per turn, as well as you'll gain other benefits, such as being able to either build other buildings or be able to make new units. At any point, you can decide to send out your units and start exploring the world. With a base unit being able to establish new towns, you find a new area with some resources around. Each of the little areas or squares on the map may contain either various other buildings that you'll get to explore, try to take over for added experience, resources, or sometimes even special units. Or you'll just have them with stuff like a deer that signifies an increase in food if you decide to build a town there, or an increase in money if you build the town at a certain spot. Having more towns means you have more to manage and more to build up, and it increases the total amount of food and all that you're able to keep stocked up as you're building more and more buildings in more and more towns. Before too long though, you're going to end up in a battle, and once the battle ends up beginning, whether you're defending or you're on the offense, you go to kind of a square grid-based map that is based on whatever plane you're currently on. So there are a few different battlefields for you to battle on. Then you'll be able to place your units and the battle begins. Everything is kind of handled with a D20 system, though you're not actually physically seeing the dice on screen or anything like that, but every type of movement and attack is based on that. Before you end up initiating attacks or spells, you can see how they're based. Whether it's a 1d6, and every character has different save values that they can kind of throw in, hope for the best, and a lot of times you may end up missing, hitting, or criticals, or just things end up not working at all based on various different elements, such as using an undead spell on an undead unit really isn't going to work, but using an undead spell on a living unit, you may be able to instantly kill them. There's lots of different factors and lots of different spells and types of units, so a lot of the battles can be pretty intense and unique. I will also say that I'm more of a casual fan when it comes to strategy games, so if you're a more in-depth and die-hard strategy game fan, there may be details or certain things that you would look for that maybe necessarily I didn't see or wouldn't have been looking for. I was definitely taking a more casual perspective when playing the game, but I did have a lot of fun with it. There was plenty of times where I was going through hours and hundreds of turns during the course of various different setups. I played the game several times with just one opponent, 4 opponents, and then with the maximum 8 opponents, which was definitely a lot of fun and pretty chaotic once the game really started to get going. Besides the main game mode, there's also a battle arena mode, and here you're going against the computer in just a one-on-one battle where you can pick from all the units in the game, set it all up the way you want, and just kind of have a big free-for-all fight. You can have all kinds of different units mixed up with other ones, and this allows you also to kind of do some strategies outside of the main game and try out various different units or different races before dedicating yourself to playing as them in the actual main game. The game also does feature a quick start mode, so if you don't feel like messing with all the settings, you just want to kind of dive in, or maybe you're just like, hey, just throw anything you want at me, there is that option. You can pick that and jump right into a random-based game. There's only one giant, humongous problem with Worlds of Magic Planar Conquest, and that's the lack of multiplayer. Not only just online multiplayer, but same system multiplayer is not in the game. And it is a turn-based strategy game, so there really shouldn't have been any issue being able to have turn-based multiplayer, at least on the same system. So I have to say that is a huge knock against this game. I don't know why they decided maybe not to include multiplayer of any kind, but it's sorely lacking, and in a game like this, it screams to be able to play with other friends or online against other opponents. From the technical side of things, the game crashed on me on a couple of occasions. Usually when I ended up leaving a game and going back to the main menu, it happened on 2 back-to-back occasions, but then I would go for a long time without it happening again. There was some minor slowdown here and there, but usually it ended up occurring between turns, and since there was so much going on with the random other enemy units and opponents kind of moving around, it was understandable, but it definitely wasn't going to take away from my current playing experience. I like the soundtrack that goes along with it, a lot of the music and kind of the epic feel to everything, especially in the battles or even when on the main map, definitely fit the game and were pretty nice to listen to, especially considering some of the songs I was hearing for long periods of time as I was going through turns. The game is available on the PlayStation 4 for $28.99, which is a bit steep considering you don't have a story mode or multiplayer, which is really my biggest gripes with the game and why it's a bit hard to recommend to a lot of players out there. I had a lot of fun playing single player, but I'm the kind of kid that actually played a lot of Heroes of Might and Magic by myself, but a lot of those games also provided a story mode or reason for creating various maps and playing through various different scenarios to add to that single player experience, which unfortunately is lacking here. So if you're someone who doesn't mind being only the single player experience and setting up random encounters and types of maps, there is a good amount of settings for you to choose from. Not only with the up to 8 different opponents, but also the various planes, there is a good amount here. I just wish they could expand upon it and make the game even better. Maybe in a sequel, that's something that possibly could happen. But for now, I'm going to be giving the game a 6 out of 10. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoyed.